drop the bar, walk outside, and then heard him outside other stuff like, do you mind, like, we've got athletes training in here, I don't need the smell of cigarettes in the gym, I'd go and smoke somewhere else. I was like, oh shit, like Ian Lawson just called me an athlete, like I'm part of the gang.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to Last Stroke Counts. Dave sadly couldn't join us this morning due to some little car trouble. Rest in peace, Dave's tire. But since we had the studio set up, we've decided to do an episode anyway. We touched upon elite mindset and kind of what it's like to row at a top level, but that's not ultimately what made us, catch the bug with the sport and continue. So we wanted to share a little bit of an insight on how you can keep rowing fun and how to enjoy the hell out of each session.
Yeah, I think it's just like you said, we've been brainstorming a little bit on ideas for the podcast and with guests that we're getting on. A lot of that is talking about their journey, but their journey towards the elite level of rowing and the mindset and the things that go with that. But then we just kind of going over things, realized that as much as it needs to be taken seriously, also you need to enjoy what you're doing, and if you don't enjoy it, you're not gonna keep doing it, or you're not gonna want to do it to a high level. So a bit on the fly today. We weren't expecting to do this, but I think really the topic for this one's going to be fun.
Definitely. You can't just also think about just trying to enjoy the peaks and the wins and the PBs, because you have to enjoy the journey, because ultimately you're going to have to turn up to every single session, and if you're going to sit through it, why not enjoy it? Why not make it fun? Why not actually look forward to some of your sessions?
When last year we started coaching, I was head coach. That was the first time I'd run a program completely. And a big part of putting that program together was working out how we could keep it fun. And I think if you're in charge, whether that's as a coach or through like university sport, when quite often like captains and some of the best rowers or rowers that have been there the longest will have some responsibility for how things go for social events and things like that. I think that's like an important thing that we realized when we were coaching. And I think ultimately, like, it's to like look back and think like, why did I first get into rowing? Like, there's going to be two things. Probably one, because you really enjoyed it, and probably a part of that's because you were good at it. And enjoyment comes from being good at something. I know, like for me in rowing, like that's where I sort of progressed, because I enjoyed that. But then sort of look back on my career as well and saying, well, what's the best bit about rowing? And some of the best things I look back, like the fondest memories, will be like the camaraderie and having fun and being with a group of guys or girls that I got along well with, or even if you weren't like necessarily the same kind of people, you found ways to like enjoy the sport together. So yeah.
Just a little bit about finding the elite banter that is obviously raveling through the cracks of the sport. Also, if somebody told you at the start, you're going to have to train 15 times a week, you're not really going to have any time off to take off for Easter other than Christmas, or pretty much just 3 weeks off in a year for summer holidays, you probably wouldn't join the sport. So you have to start small and like gradually increase kind of like your level of involvement. So how can you do that? What can kind of spur you on to take on some more of these sessions?
I think quite a few programs can start to take things seriously a little bit too quickly. I think that's very off-putting for people. I mean, the standard of rowing in this country is really high. So even say at a junior level, you're going to find that at schools training really hard, like maybe training 8-10 times a week, something like that. And I think it can get very serious very quickly. And it is a very serious sport. You do need to do a lot of training. You do need to have an endurance base. You do also need to have strength and fitness, and like there's a lot of different things you need to do. Nerve racing can be nerve-wracking, but yeah, like just keep coming back to making sure that there's fun in it, and you're not going to enjoy it every day, and you're not going to sit on the start line and be like, I'm having so much fun. But like there are times where you should really make sure that you're enjoying it.
Well, and also if you're turning up 10-12 times a week, if you're not enjoying it, you might do it for a week, for 2 weeks, for 6 weeks, maybe 2 months. Maybe you're not a quitter, it's going to take you a little bit longer. But ultimately, if you're not having fun and you find yourself kind of struggling at sessions, it's going to be harder to continue. So here we are with some of the tips on how to enjoy your rowing journey a bit more. What was the first moment that you found the most fun about this sport when you started to take it a bit more seriously? Why did you want to get your racing license?
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, to start with, like, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the challenge. I think from when I started at school, I had a few close friends that I did it with, and we enjoyed it, and we all lived quite close to each other. So we would, like, on Saturday mornings, we would either cycle or walk to rowing together, and that was, quite fun to have a couple of other friends that I started doing it with. But then I also think, just not that anyone's better or worse, but my school specifically in that first year that we started training just kept it very light and fun. And, things like just mixing everyone around, like just everyone gets a different seat each time. Everyone gets a different, you can go and cox it this time, and just keeping things really varied. I think that's something that my first sort of long-term coach I had from J15 to J18, he was really, one thing he did really well was just keep the squad together for as long as possible. So not to break it down into top crews too early, not to get too serious about, like, oh, okay, at the end of this year, we want to win this race. So like, these are my top 8 rowers now. So like, this is my top crew. And I think you need more than 8 people anyway. Ultimately through the year, you're going to have illnesses and injuries. And I think another part of like keeping a big squad together is just keeping everyone involved and making sure everyone feels involved and making sure everyone feels like they're getting equal amount of time. Because also other people will develop at different speeds and stuff. So you're sort of cutting down your options if you just think, oh, this is my best 4, I'm going to keep this the way it is. But I think, a big part of that was just feeling involved, feeling like part of the squad. Because I wasn't initially by far the best either. So potentially like one of the things that allowed me by the end of my time at school to become the best athlete at my school in my year was the fact that early on, I was kept involved. I didn't feel like I was shut out. The program wasn't split between the best and the worst.
Definitely. If you're running a big squad, you need to incentivize pretty much every athlete that you've got involved, because there will be times where, you only really have to focus on your like racing crews, on your main crews. However, by giving each member of the squad a feeling that they belong and they still play a vital role, is going to help them stay longer and just kind of be more involved, more confident, feel like they're still contributing. Because as we find out day in, day out, things can go wrong and you will need spares. And obviously with the last few years about, races being cancelled or people having illnesses or having to pull out quickly, you need to keep a big squad, because for the entire year, it's going to come in really, really handy. Another thing about rowing is obviously the camaraderie. So when I first started, I guess I found it fun because for my age at the time, I was quite a big guy and my erg scores were quite good, but also I had other people to like push off of. So I had other rowers in my team who I could challenge to kind of compete with them on the erg course, try and beat them, trying to one-up them. But also I had people in the groups above that I could look up to, and I was like, okay, these guys are doing 320 minutes on the ergo and they're pulling 240 watts. Which is about, 152 for anybody interested. Maybe not. Don't quote my mouth on this. But, I would think, oh, wow. In 2 years, I'm going to have to run those watts. I need to train harder. I want to enjoy it more. I want to be stronger. Maybe they will need a sub. Maybe I can jump in. So what kept it fun for me was just the feeling of trying to be useful and understanding that at some point I'm going to become an asset to the team as well. So it was the promise of what's coming later, but also with the emphasis of what I'm doing now. So what in my head thinking about, okay, cool, in the future, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this type of race. I'm going to learn how to sweep. I'm going to learn how to be in this boat, or maybe I'm going to learn how to steer. That kind of gave the meaning to the training now. So I could get lost a little bit more in a zone of, cool, just get through the week by week on the training, continue to like doing the miles, and then progress just kept happening. So I wasn't like so focused on each session. I was looking at rowing in terms of more week by week or month by month basis. And by sort of taking a step back in terms of how close you're sitting to what you're doing right now, you can kind of make it a bit more fun, because like, okay, you had a bad session, you caught a crab, cool. It doesn't matter that much in the grand scheme of things, because, in the last month we've PB'd, or we've gained some speed, or we've beat some crews, and let's just keep on moving to the next challenge. Just understand that things are going to go wrong and you're not going to enjoy every session. But like I said, if you take a step back, then the weight of each fuck up is kind of decreased.
Yeah, I think that kind of just leads into like taking things too seriously too quickly. And I think I've seen like at a junior level, there was a lot of guys that were like the best, or the guys who went to world championships and stuff, who you see them do really well and be really successful at junior level, and then they don't step on, or they almost feel like burnt out, like they've taken it so seriously and it's got so intense so quickly that then like that's kind of stopped them from progressing. And it's, of course, it's like a double-edged sword, because you're not going to win anything if you don't bring any sort of level of seriousness to certain parts of it. But then I think that's it to start with. Like, as an athlete, you're not necessarily going to have any control over what sessions you're doing, or how the sessions are going, or things like that. But you can kind of control like when to have fun. I think that's like my first point really, is knowing when is to have fun and when not to have fun. Not necessarily not to have fun, but when to be serious. And I think if you can make that distinction, then you can have a lot of fun but still get a lot of work done. So the big one that we've spoke about in squads and with us as well would be like from the moment you push off. Like, other people do it differently. Sometimes it would be the moment from hands on. If getting your boat down to the water is quite difficult, you don't really want people messing about. But if you choose that point as a crew, or you discuss it with your coach, that point at which that when it's like, right, hands on, or boat on the water, or pushing off from the land stage, it's like, now this is business. And that's the point when you want to stay really focused and really work on everything that you're doing and everything you're being told. Make sure you're actively thinking about what you're doing when you're in the boat, because, people talk about 10,000 hours, but it's not just 10,000 hours of being there. It's 10,000 hours of purposeful practice. But then, so there's other times outside the boat is when you can have fun, when you can have a chat and have a laugh, when you're stretching, make some jokes. And especially like when times get more serious, when you come to race day, there are going to be nerves and stuff around. So I think it's important to use those opportunities where you can have fun in the gym, not when you're on the rowing machine, but before or after, or when you're doing weights. Like, make sure there's an opportunity to keep it lighthearted. Make sure there are opportunities to have fun. And then the other thing would be, from the social aspect. And again, we talked about like that being at regattas when you're sat around together, don't just wander off and do your own thing. Like, use that as an opportunity to spend time with your crew and have a laugh. Like, and sport should be fun. And like we said, it's not going to enjoy it every day, but there's a time and a place to enjoy it. And there's a time and place to be really serious and switch on that elite mindset. But also, like any elite athlete that we talk to will also have a bunch of stories of like funny things that they've done.
I completely agree. There's a time and a place for everything. No matter how elite your banter is, if you say it at a wrong time, it's going to land wrong. And if you do it in the middle of pieces or on the spin in between the pieces, etc., somebody might not take the message well, because it's obviously understanding that, cool, you might want to keep yourself a bit more lighthearted in training, but others might take it serious. So you also have to like understand what your crew's doing, or like the attitude. But like, when there's a time to work, there's a time to work. If you understand that there is a time to work and there's a time to have fun, the work is going to become more productive and the fun is going to be just amplified, really. Because, well, if you can have fun and fuck about and drop some banter, do it. Go large, go big, and don't hold back. But as soon as you push off, or as soon as it's time to focus, like, just make sure you give it your all. And also, you're going to look forward to those moments of banter more if you have been working hard and you're contributing. Because, to be honest, in my experience, like, I got the most fun out of rowing when I knew that I was improving. I was performing well, I was doing the right things, and I could see that I was on a good path. Whenever I didn't enjoy rowing, it was during those moments where things weren't going maybe like quite well, or I was maybe distracted, or I wasn't paying too much attention in the boat, because it's normal. Like, thoughts run, they're just like passing cars on the road. You have to pick which one you give your focus to. So if you make that distinction of, cool, I'm working, I'm trying to be productive, I'm trying to improve, then you can switch off when the session's done. You wouldn't want to leave a light bulb on in your living room just flickering. Be on or be off.
Give 100% to everything you do. So when it's time to get serious, be 100%, and when it's time to have fun, be 100% as well. And I think it's going to depend like where you are in your squad, and I think inclusiveness is a really important thing that keeps things fun for everyone. And that's not to say, obviously, if you have a novice squad and a senior squad, it's not saying that you're going to do every session together, but there are plenty of opportunities to have full team sessions. And like I said, some of this will come a bit more into people in a position of leadership or coaches. But there's a big crossover in rowing between who's in charge, and especially if you're in a bigger club or a club with like less coaches or a lot of volunteers. There's going to always be opportunities where someone maybe gets put in charge for a cross-training session or something. And I think as a leader as well, again, like it's, if you are the club captain or you have a position of responsibility, it can be quite tempting to get really serious. And like I said, there's always a point to be serious, but you just got to remember to enjoy it a little bit more as well. And I look back at the most fun years I had where, they were really serious and there were some really tough times and I trained really, really hard, like to beyond what I thought was my capability. And my first year at Leander, first year sort of going to full-time elite level, that was a real struggle. But I also remember like all the fun times and, even like we've been out on a Saturday morning and we've done pieces, and these are sort of time trial pieces. And a lot of the time these results are going to maybe depend on who you might get put in a pair with if you're a sweep or what crew or what boat you might go in. But there'll be video analysis. And then, we'd sit around between sessions and we'd sit and watch video analysis. And, sometimes it's jokey and bantery. Sometimes it can get a little, you don't want to be in bullying side of things, but, like taking the mickey out of someone's technique. Or I remember John Collins was hilarious on the row machine. He could mimic anyone's style. Like a lot of us can do, some people, but he could literally just be like, who's this? And like, he's obviously watched other people row. And that was quite a funny thing of like, pointing stuff out. It was always done in jest, but yeah, there's a time and a place and all the rest of it. But I think it's just really important. Like I said, the point of this is really important to remember that as far as you want to take your rowing and as elite as you want to be, and if you want to have this elite mindset, don't forget why you started doing the sport, and don't forget to add a little bit of enjoyment into it.
You also got to understand, if you're spending like hours and hours with your crew and like other people in your team when you're training every single week, there will be like times of tension and sometimes things might get a little bit heated. And what's the best way of relieving this is humor. Like you want to de-escalate things with humor. So if you can't take the piss out of someone's erg technique, please do. And tag us in the video because we'd love to see it. I mean, some of the funniest parts about not rowing is walking into a public gym and just trying to see what new technique of rowing people have came up with. Like I just found that non-rowers can be so inventive with just how they vary. Like I didn't realize you can use rowing machine so wrong in so many different ways. But anyway, I digress.
I had a do a 12k ergo, just as like a cross training session. And I was in Oxford, so I went and did it in a public gym. And my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, her gym, I went and paid whatever, £7 one. And I was sat down trying to do a 12k ergo next to someone who's doing underarm, like how to handle underarm. And there's just not any point in me even like trying to explain. Like it's just like too far wrong. I think another part of like talking about taking your own to the next level, like you have to be able to take criticism. Like you have to understand that you can't improve if you're not taking any criticism. And sometimes that can be done seriously, but sometimes it can be like jokingly and lightheartedly. And I remember another thing we used to go and do timed pieces at Dorney as a squad on Thursdays. So Wednesday night, everyone would de-rig their singles, load them on the trailer. Thursday morning, we'd turn up, rig the singles, and not very many people had a stroke coach. So what would happen is from the start, it would set off. There would be a car driving along. The coaches would sit in their car because it's cold and they didn't want to be outside. One coach would film the thing, and then the other coach would call out on the megaphone, would call out stroke rates. So we say we're doing this for the first 2Ks at like 22 or something. And so we would, so like one by one, he'd go like lane 1, 22, good. Lane 2, 22, good. But then we sat back at Leander and watched, when you sit there and watch the video, you can see that because people know when they're about to get given a rate check, basically like you see it go off and like lane 1's doing 22, everyone else is doing like 26. And then as soon as lane 1 gets called 22, lane 2 slows down to 22. And you can just kind of see, because the coach is only looking at one athlete, but when you look at all 6 on the video. So obviously then now people would get ripped a little bit, for like over rating or whatever. And there was a bit of banter in it. Obviously, there's a serious point to doing a rate capped piece. So like to a certain extent, like not necessarily maybe getting the most out of it, but like, yeah, understanding that there's a fun and light-hearted way also to improve rowing, and you can bring fun into it. And, if you want to talk about improvements or whatever, sometimes you can do it in a jokey way and, like you said, a bit of banter. But I think there's a way to actually use it for the good, for progress as well. It's not just completely separate. It's not like, oh, I'm rowing or I'm having fun. Like, you can do both together.
I think it also like definitely really depends on what's on the program. So like there can be definitely some sessions that are like more fun than others. I'm not sure how many people in the world enjoy a 16K straight through UT2 just rate 19, but I found that interval training can be fun in a way, or battle paddling, where talking about matched rates, it's absolutely unheard of that anybody would break the rate cap, especially when battle paddling. If the coach says it's 26, oh, it definitely is 26. The other crew's not doing 35 when the coach is not looking, just to try and get ahead. But another fun sessions that you can do are weights. Obviously, when you're working with your crewmates in the gym, you can try and kind of like up them with some of the weights that they're doing, or some training load, or you're trying to, to mimic the form a bit differently. But also some sessions that I found really fun were just cross training. So one thing that we used to do at my club in Poland is every Wednesday night would be a basketball night, because you gotta understand that crew bonding and having fun is going to improve your rowing. It's not all about the erg score. And my coach used to say, cool, well, I can put you on the erg five times a week now and you will improve. But is that going to make you a better athlete? Or is there time to also have fun and actually develop like other skills? Because, well, if you're going to spend and dedicate years of your life to rowing, it would be a shame to just know how to row and not develop any, like, people skills on the way too, or learning how to work in a team. For example, when you play a game of basketball, you could be the star player, but your team could have lost. So you need to kind of think about, okay, maybe I need to remove my ego a little bit, and I need to help the team. So there is definitely a lot to be gained from other types of sessions, but I wanted to know what were some of your favorite sessions when training for rowing, or just at school, or maybe at Leander, or what did you used to do for fun when you were in a team?
Yeah, we used to do cross training sessions, and like this kind of pushes more into from a coach's perspective, or like I said, if you're a captain in your college or university and you're maybe responsible for training or sessions, like varying it I think is really important. And obviously you can have a lot more fun when you're not necessarily in the boat, like really focusing on form and stuff. So yeah, if you're doing a cross training session like football or basketball, I think we've talked before about the football sessions that we all thought would be a laugh, but still always got really serious, and there was definitely like a benefit. We all got a lot of exercise out of that. I think in rowing, because we've got the rowing machine, which is like incredibly similar to the rowing action, it's a double-edged sword in the way that you've got something you can train on when you're not on the water on your own, you don't have a crew, but also I think it can really get overused. And I think if you just sit every single session, it's very one-dimensional. You could get stronger in one sense, but you sort of lacking mobility. And that was something towards the end of my rowing career that even with the GB rowing team, sort of mobility and flexibility was really increased. The amount that we did more of like plyometrics or like explosive power weight sessions, things like that, which are also really important. But yeah, so varying it.
Just hang on. So plyometric stuff is like dynamic weights. So weights when you're doing kind of like different movements, like jumping or something like this. So isometric is essentially a squat. A squat is isometric. You just move the weights. Your bench press, you lie on the bench and you press the barbell up. Your body's kind of isolated. But with plyometrics, you can see a lot of football teams do this when they do like jumping leg presses, and it's like, whoa, your knees and your ankles, like it just hurts me watching this.
Yeah, you've got to control coming back. But yeah, it would be jumping like onto a box, jumping back down, jumping onto a box, or maybe doing a triple jump in a row, like just body weight or with weight in it. But yeah, not to get onto that, but the point more being that a varied training program I think can be more fun. And again, when I had a chance to be a head coach, something I really wanted to do is exactly what you're doing in Poland, was one session a week, doing something that everyone can get involved in and doesn't necessarily require a lot of talent. And especially if you're in a squad with with different groups, if you've say got a junior and a senior squad, or if you've got a novice squad, that's a session that everyone can do together. And I think like at the end of the day, we've discussed that before as well. Like you pull harder for your friends. Like the more you can get that group together, the more enjoyment and fun you can have, the more you can spend time with each other, the more you'll get to know that person. And like when it comes down to it, you know, the last 500, when you know that person well and they know you well, and you've been working hard for each other each year, that gives you the confidence to push on, knowing that that person behind you and in front of you is going to work as hard as you. So I think that's really important. And I mean, also like the midpoint here between being an athlete and how you can have fun as an athlete, and being a coach and how you can bring fun to your program, is like being that leadership role. And I think there is a time to be serious, but there also is a time to be fun. And I think as a leader, I think a big part of it is, well, like the old quote is leaders lead and bosses boss. Like if you want to be a leader, if you want to be in that position, you need to lead by example. And that means leading by example in every way, like leading by example when it's time to be serious, but also leading by example by having fun. And we've seen that in the squads that I've run, you know, having a captain who's really willing to just have a laugh, not take life too seriously, you know, play football. You know, even if someone who's really good at football, you know, maybe just holding back a little bit, getting other people get involved. I just think it's really important. And you never know, you know, someone who's in your novice squad at the start of the season could be in your first boat at the end of the season. So getting everyone involved and learning about it is going to be really beneficial for that squad.
So if you're a coach, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to lead by example by, you know, dropping some absolutely shit banter on your athletes, or trying to make jokes and when maybe that they aren't fitting. But you can make the environment fun by, for example, running a leaderboard and have like a whiteboard with all the top scores, or maybe like a monthly challenge for your athletes, or measure progress and improvement. But something even as simple as doing a PB bell, that made a big difference. So like we started our season last year coaching. For the first term, we didn't have a PB bell. Over Christmas, we went and installed it. And honestly, it's a really simple thing. But as soon as our athletes started PBing on 2Ks and other training pieces, they get to ring this bell. And, you know, at the start, it's just a bit funny, like, oh yeah, I PB, I need to ring my PB bell. But when you hear more people in the squad trying to ring it, etc., like, maybe if you have a moment of doubt during one of your erg pieces, but you think, but I do fancy ringing that bell, I'm not going to deny myself the pleasure of it. Maybe that's something that is going to increase the fun enough to the point where you want to keep pushing harder. Because ultimately, I love what you said about you pull harder for your mates, but you also pull harder for yourself when you have fun. Definitely. Because if you just hate the grind, you're not going to turn up and do your best. You're going to try and find a way out, path of least resistance, or maybe like a shortcut or something like this. And it doesn't have to be this way. So yeah, enjoying it could be done through the training. It could be done through the camaraderie. It could be done through the setup and the environment and the atmosphere. What are some ways that you can keep growing more fun, but without necessarily involving just like jokes and laughter, etc.?
Yeah, I think it's what you talked about really is there. You don't have to separate the two things. And ultimately, having fun is a performance enhancer. Like you said, like if you're enjoying the sport, like you're going to perform better. So things like a PB bow, you know, which like it's literally just a little bell that you ring. And that's something that I didn't see a lot of, but in the time that I've been involved in rowing, I see a lot of different squads have it now. And it's fun. Even when, you know, we're at session, we're fixing row machines and maybe the athletes are there and you hear the PB bell ring, like, it's really cool to see. You can see how it hypes people up. Like obviously, we've both said that those progress markers are things that enjoy, like being able to see your constant progress. So like being able to enjoy that, like with your crew, you know, as well. Like being able to ring that bell in front of everyone is really good. Like it's motivating for you and for them as well. You know, you hear a lot of people ring the bell, and like it can be a PB for ergo, or it can be a PB for the weight that you've lifted and things like that. Like turning progression into a game almost is a way to do it, and then that's how you can bring fun into it without it being like detrimental to what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. Turning it into a game, just pretty much with anything, is a cheat code. It absolutely is, because it's different when you have a target that you're working towards. When it's written down versus when it's just in your head, it makes it so much different. As soon as you write it down, you make it real. So then you can actually go out there and beat it and cross it off your list. So potentially keeping a training diary might be something that could actually enhance the amount of enjoyment that you get out of the sport. provided that you over time make the progress, it could be good. But also say on the flip side of that, oh, but isn't it going to make me more depressed if, for example, if I don't improve, or if I don't PB, or if I haven't seen much progress? Well, at least you know the ingredients of what made those scores so that you can analyze it or maybe discuss it with your coach, and then spare future enjoyment out of fixing those mistakes. Because as soon as you write it down, you have data, and with data you can work, you can make adjustments, you can understand it, analyze it, and improve the future.
Yeah, and all these things are good points, and these are things that we talk about, with the athletes. And I think it's really good to get knowledge from. I think people really like to get knowledge from a level above them. So you want to say like, oh, what I'm doing it as an amateur level is I do so many of these things, but what are they doing at elite level? What's different? What did it require of them to progress to the next level? Again, like the point of doing this podcast is because we just sort of remembered like all those things are important, but like you've also like got to enjoy it. Like you've got to enjoy it, not every single day and not every single session, but you've got to keep doing that. And I think it doesn't matter. I think, like you said, it doesn't matter what level you're at rowing. If you find the people that are performing the best are people who are going to be enjoying what they do. When I got that rowing bug at school and about J16, I sort of rose to the top of the squad I was in, and it wasn't a huge squad, but for as a kid, I'd always thought the idea of being a professional athlete was great. And as I sort of started to progress in rowing, that thought in my head of like, oh, maybe I could do this as a job one day. Like maybe this could be like my way to be an athlete, like what I'd wanted. I think from that point, then it can be very tempting to try and get incredibly serious about everything and try and be like, I have to be focused, like I have to be 100% switched on all the time. And I look back at my rowing career, and there was certainly from when I started rowing full time, like we were all there, like we all wanted to be elite athletes. We all want to earn money. Like we all want to get on funding. Like that was like a point that we were aiming towards, like get to that point where you're on funding. But then having realized that actually that point where I got on funding was where it got a little bit more serious, because like, okay, this is my job now. Like this is how I make money, and the way I perform at the end of the year is going to determine how much money I make next year. So it all got really serious from that point. And looking back at it now, like I didn't necessarily would change anything I did, because I think for me, I had to work that hard to get there. But just realizing that the most fun part of my sport, the bit I look back on with the most fond memories, was before that, before the money, before it started getting super, super serious. And we were sort of still allowed, even working in an elite program, we still allowed ourselves to have fun and enjoy it and crack jokes and have a laugh. And, again, like for me, like talking about by the time I got to that Henley final, by the time we were boating for my Henley final my first year, like I knew our whole squad, I knew everyone, we knew each other really well. We'd had a laugh all year. We knew we were going to work hard for each other. So I would just say, like, even if you have really big dreams and you really want to get to the top level of this sport, don't forget to have fun and don't forget to make it a part of what you're doing.
And having fun and being serious is not inversely proportional. Like we spoke about a little bit earlier, be like a light bulb, be either on or off. Don't just be flickering or just, flashing a light. Because then the more you make the distinction between being serious and actually having fun, like we touched upon that, the peaks will be better. For the seriousness, you'll get better results out of when you're serious, but also you'll have just more laughs when you're trying to be fun. You asked, what do the elite rowers do differently at the top? How do you become an elite rower? You nail the basics. You get so good at the basics that they're essentially just so ingrained in your DNA. It's all the muscle memory and everything is just taken care of. So it's not just about trying to do something amazing, somewhat at the top, something that only so many people in the world can do with a talent. It's not about trying to do the amazing things. It's about raising the level of your basics, your innate understanding, etc. I heard a really good quote on the internet, and it said, winners don't have something you don't have, they lack something that you have. You probably already got all the right ingredients in order to make it to the top. You need to just basically let less things get in the way of achieving this, and you can do this by just mastering and being so good at the basics. If you want to be Michael Jordan and you want to be scoring a lot of points, or if you want to be Cristiano Ronaldo and you want to score pretty much every time you shoot, you have to be so good at just doing the basic movements, the basic options, the passing and everything. There was a story of a training session at Manchester United, and Cristiano Ronaldo, he was a young guy at that time. He was trying to like get a really technical free kick, and then Paul Scholes famously comes up to him and he's like, "Okay, you try and do all this fancy stuff, etc. Look at this tree, 50 meters away. Try and hit that." And Cristiano tried it. He kept trying, he kept missing it, and then he says, "Well, Scholes, are you showing?" And then Paul Scholes went and kicked it a couple of times and hit it. And it's not about trying to do something so extraordinary, something that requires so much talent at the top that nobody else can do. Get good at the basic shit until you can't get it wrong, and that's how you get to the top. But then also, doesn't that take a little bit of the pressure off from trying to perform something so difficult?
Yeah, I think it's like if you look at the military, they say like the best soldiers are the ones that can switch it on and off, because the mindset that's required to be in a war zone, which is obviously an exaggerated form of being sport. Like sport is you're having a battle, but like no one's going to die in rowing. You can't be in that mindset all the time. You can't be completely switched on, high pressure, high, really like pumped up. That you can't do that 24 hours a day. So it's about when you're in that place, be able to switch it on and be there, and then when you're not in there, being able to switch it off again. And some people are better than others, and some people it's something that you learn. I think for everyone it's something you can learn and you can get better at. And I think a load of these skills, and it's not something that you just have. Like for a lot of these things, I think it's time that it's things that you learn over time how to do. So yeah, being able to switch on, switch off. For your point, really, is like doing everything that you do to 100%. So when you do a cross training session, you play football, 100% have fun, work hard. Run for that ball, slide for that tackle, not into your teammate, hopefully. That's kind of rowers and football is sometimes the competition can get a little bit too high. And I know guys that have injured themselves playing football, which is obviously not the best. Like if you've got a very aggressive group, maybe some other sport where it's non-contact would be more fun. But whatever that
not rugby,
whatever that cross training session, just lean into it 100%, and like I said, do everything to the best of your ability. And I think that means when you're stretching, make sure you really haven't got it. And stretching when you're in the boat, make sure you're in the boat. But like when you're sat together having breakfast, have a laugh. Put something funny on the TV, or I think as well. I think even in the sessions, and again, this is probably more for people who are coaching or leading or captains in their squads, just mix it up, like make sure there's always going to be time. Obviously, there's a limited amount of time you have in a boat and things like that. But like following on from my earlier point of like, keep the squad together as much as you can early on, and really only towards the very sharp end of the season separate into the different boats, but also just mix it up. Have a session where everyone changes seats, or into Christmas, the last session before Christmas, like go and just do a fun row. And like in Oxford, we would go and do a lock trip, so we could go and row through from where we boated. You could row through two locks,
something like that,
get down a good sort of 10k. And that was just fun, sitting in the lock and having a laugh. There's a lot of other people that do this. At Leander, they do the Turkey Skulls racing, where everyone turns up that morning. It's the last session before breaking up for Christmas. Everyone turns up. The names, I think, get pulled out of a hat, or it's like one boy, one girl, one of the old boys that's come and turned up, one coach, and just have a good old race. And it's competitive and people are switched on, but at the same time, it's totally random. No one knows who's going to win. And the winners end up winning a turkey for Christmas, it's really fun. And like you said, like even at an elite program like Leander, they do those things. There's always got to be time to just enjoy it, and time to just take a step back, take the pressure off, and remember why you did it in the first place. Like the only reason you're at that level now, or the only reason you're taking rowing seriously now, is because you enjoyed it from the start. So don't lose that. Don't forget that. I think that point in my career when I really lost the enjoyment of it, obviously I was injured, I was spending a lot of time out the boat, I was missing out on that camaraderie, I didn't have the group of boys, I was training on my own. Even when we did weights, I had my own specific weight session from the physio, so I missed out on a lot of that banter, and I think that really got me not enjoying rowing as much. And ultimately, it was injury was the reason I stopped. But certainly that year when I struggled a lot with injury, I struggled a lot with not being part of the group, that was one of the years I least enjoyed. And it wasn't because of where I was. It was just more because I was missing that bit and potentially trying to take things a little bit too serious, worrying a lot. Worrying's useless. Ultimately, you know, we've talked a little bit about control the controllables, which is one we focused on. You know, there's no point worrying about the rain. Just make sure you've got the kit for it. There's no point worrying about things that you can't control. Like it's absolutely pointless. The way you can have a performance benefit is to worry more about the things you can have an effect on. And the other thing is, you know, whether you're a leader or not, I think keeping people involved and keeping it fun at sessions, before sessions, things like that, that's ultimately going to have a big performance benefit to your club as well, because the more people you can keep growing, the better the pool of athletes that you have to choose from. So ultimately, the more likely you're going to have a faster crew at the end of the year. So there are little things that I think you can think, you know, oh, I'm way better than those people. You know, I'm not going to go and talk to those people. And I've been in squads. In my first year at Leander, there was a lot of guys there who just didn't really talk to us. We were in the bottom group. You know, they felt that they were better than us, or to a certain extent, I think there was a sense of waiting for us to prove that we were worth being there, because the process to joining Leander is open. Anyone can join, pretty much. They've got some statistics they want you to hit. So maybe there was a little sense of like waiting for us to sort of prove that we were there. But at the same time, it definitely wasn't beneficial to feel cut off from another squad, or cut off from another part of the club that you rode at. And I think that's something that anyone can do. You know, it doesn't take anything to go and sit down and talk to a novice, or if you see someone, you know, rowing slightly differently. And that's one thing again at Leander. Like, there were some guys, Clive Kennedy Byrne, like, lovely guy, like a lot of people know him. He's still coaching, I think, now a little bit, and involved in rowing. But you know, he was a guy that would see you rowing a bit funny, and he would come and sit down and give you some advice and stuff. And I think that was like, that made you feel like a part of the squad. That makes you feel like other people care about what you're doing. And, or, you know, Ian Lawson screaming at the staff. Like, again, that was, from my perspective, when I was very new, very very low down, and I wasn't, you know, I wouldn't chat shit to any of the older boys or whatever, and I felt like you know, my place was a little bit further away from them in the lower squad. But like, then seeing things like that. So in the end, the gym is just across the hall from the staff entrance, and I think the staff would smoke outside. And sometimes, if someone was coming in and out, the door would be open, so the smell of smoke, cigarettes, was coming into the gym. And it was just an evening, and I was doing an erg on the evening on my own. And Ian Lawson, who went to the Olympics in 2000 in the men's single, he was also training down in the gym. I think he just like dropped the bar, saw him like walk outside, and then heard him outside, like, other staff, like, do you mind, like, we've got athletes training in here. I don't need the smell of cigarettes in the gym. Like, go and smoke somewhere else. And I was like, oh shit, like, Ian Lawson just called me an athlete. Like, I'm part of the gang. So if you have that opportunity to make people in your club or in your squad or in other squads feel like they're a part of it, feel motivated, feel like they're in that team dynamic, that's automatically going to make them enjoy it more, and that's going to have a performance benefit on your club.
Ultimately, just understand your place in the club. So what you're doing is probably going to attract future rowers to come and join the same program. Like, one of the things we tried to do at Keeble was also make it seem like we've had a lot of fun with training by just putting a weekly highlight reel of pretty much every single session that we put out. So, you know, you could look back, you could see the performers, we'd put some music on so everybody could feel involved. And then hopefully that has attracted like some more rowers to the club, and something that you see more and more with social media now. You see rowers and athletes showing how they're having fun, and different types of training sessions and environments, and you can look at those different things. But I also really like what you said about criticism, how without it you can't really rise to the top. And one thing about criticism is you just must never take it personally, because if somebody's giving you criticism, number one, they give enough of a shit about you in order to try and help you improve. Number two, unless you learn how to deal with your own ego, you're probably not going to improve very much, especially with having some more accomplished coaches and athletes, like, you know, people who went to the Olympics trying to give you a tip. you're like, well, obviously I'm going to take it. Like, I don't know better than the person who's gone and raced at World Championships literally 2 weeks ago and just got a gold medal. Essentially, training feels so much better when you're part of a squad. So for example, if you have the opportunity to like not go and do that erg on your own, go and find someone that you can erg next to, because even a 16K session can be like more enjoyable if you've got like a training partner to go alongside. I remember when Leander would break up for Christmas break, Tom Ransley, shout out T-Run, would bring his dog and we'd just do a session next to him. And he was one of those athletes that has gone to the Olympics, has had world championship medals, and there was just a junior at Leander, a 16-year-old kid, and who just always gave me the time of the day to go and erg next to him, and just always so supportive and appreciative and understanding, and ultimately understand that also you are part of what makes the club culture. So it's not just about people treating you a certain way, it's also how you treat others. So it's a bit of a give and take in this situation.
Yeah, I think club culture is a really important thing. I think everyone has a responsibility, and everyone can help try and make a place somewhere where people want to be. Like, ultimately, you're not going to want to be around people. Something we've seen before, things get really cliquey, you get in your little groups. Obviously, like sort of outside of rowing, you're going to have people that you're better friends with, things like that. And it's not to say that you shouldn't have groups, but to be inclusive and to make sure other people feel involved, I think is important. And again, like talking about elite mindset, there's sometimes there's sort of if you're really focused on, you want to be the best and you don't want sort of any distractions, you don't want anything else around, you can kind of get into that mentality of like, oh, I'm not spending any time with the novices, or I'm not jumping in a boat with them, like I'm focused on me. And it is important to focus on you and what you're doing, but like it is important to also make sure that, remember that you were there once and everyone was there once. And the more you can help other people get into rowing and enjoy it and catch the bug, like I said, the more beneficial it is going to be for you and your club.
Do you know what the funny thing about clickiness is that I found in rowing? It never comes from the top rowers. Like, you never see somebody like Steve Williams give you shit when you're on an ergo. Like, it's like the opposite. It's almost as if the higher you go, the nicer you are to the people at the start of their sport journey, because you understand that you were there once and you want to like support them through. So for example, I was a little bit disappointed because I didn't make the selection for World Championships or for Coupe when I was a junior, because I couldn't really trial due to like just feasibility of traveling and doing training camps, etc. I wanted to do Henley with Leander, so I ended up doing home countries, and I was feeling a little bit down about that after the season was over, because maybe I wanted to do something more. It felt like it was maybe like the consolidation prize. And then I saw Steve Williams in the gym. He's a double Olympic gold medalist, by the way. So I just saw him and I told him about what I did over the summer, etc., how I felt a bit down about the whole situation because I wanted to do more. I wanted to aspire to kind of achieve better things. And he said, oh, my first international regatta was home countries. Well done. And do you know what? That just completely changed my perspective on it. It just felt like, oh, maybe I need to take a step outside and stop worrying. And if you're the type of person that worries, maybe this is going to help you. Of any times where you were worrying about something going wrong, the thing that probably actually happened that went wrong is the thing that you never saw coming in the first place. So it makes you think, was worrying even helpful? Did it even help? Or maybe you should just understand that no matter what you worry about, it's probably not going to be the thing that's actually going to go wrong in the end.
Yeah, sometimes I wouldn't even blame someone for having that attitude. I can see why, I can see why that if you really wanted to take your rowing to the next level, you might want to get in that attitude of being like, oh, I'm only going to focus on the best things. I'm only going to be serious, and I'm going to shout at anyone that's having too much fun, And like I've heard athletes tell me in different programs, they might be stretching beforehand and having a laugh and a joke, and the coach has come up to them and been like, you need to be more serious. Like, there's a time to be more serious, but there's also a time to enjoy it. And like you said, I don't necessarily think it's like someone's fault for like maybe having a mindset where they're like, oh, I don't want to do anything with like other people, that I don't want to sit in a boat with people who aren't as good as me. But yeah, I think ultimately just remember that rowing is the ultimate team sport in the point that you're all trying to do the exact same thing, and a team done correctly is stronger than the sum of its parts. So if you are able to help other people along, you're going to make your team better, and that's going to benefit you, and that's going to benefit everyone in it. So the more people feel backed up, the more people feel a part of the squad, the more, just to get a comment from, like you say, from an athlete who's better than them, well done on your PB, having some sort of knowledge or keeping your eyes open to what else is going on in the squad, I think it's only going to be beneficial. And like you said, it's having fun comes in many different ways, and it's you don't as a coach just say, right, today we're having fun, go and have fun now. Like, it doesn't, you can't like force it. You can't say, oh, Tom and Pete said we need to have more fun, so today, like, have fun, go. Like, it's not, you can't do that. So it's about bringing fun into all the aspects of things that you're already doing, I think. And no matter how serious you want to take it and where you want to go, just remember that, like you said, the journey is just as important, and you really want to enjoy the journey, and you want to look back and have all those fun times. And I look back on my years at Leander, and knowing that we're getting Dave on, I can't talk about too many because he's involved in loads of them, and there's going to be some really fun stories to talk about. But just, you look back at the silly times, you look back at some of the times when necessarily didn't get everything right, but you got to allow yourself to have fun. You've got to allow the pressure release. It is a high pressure environment. There are going to be times that are really stressful, especially coming to summer seat racing or even, or racing once you've made your crew. And it's just, you got to vary it. And a skill, we said before, a skill that soldiers talk a lot about is just being able to switch on and off into that time. Know when it's time to be really serious. And from a coach's perspective, we have spoke to crews about that and said, by the time we push off, we're going to take it seriously, So I could get to training in the morning, and, I'll get there and they'll be talking about, for 3 years, I coached the girls' squad at Keeble. So, they'll be talking about some boy or this or that or a night out or, just having a laugh. And they might not have, they all do different things. They're on different courses. They might not have seen each other for a few days. Like, absolutely let them have a time to have a laugh and a catch up. But then if we get in the boat and we start doing our drills and someone's still chatting in the back or having a laugh, or like, that really pissed me off, because it's like, no, we've said that this is the moment that we are going to take things seriously. So, understanding when and where to do it.
Morale is such a huge part of improving the standard of the entire squad, but also improving yourself, because if you can help the entire squad kind of raise the floor, if you can help bring some other people up, you have to understand that as an athlete, you push off of others, because you're in rowing, it's a very competitive sport. So if you kind of are a little bit ahead of everybody else, maybe help them raise the floor, and then you'll probably create a monster along the way, but also you'll maybe create somebody that you can push off of, somebody who can motivate you. And you never know, maybe you'll be down at one point and somebody's going to come down to you and give you some piece of advice that's going to be better. And as people, we need to have fun, we need to have time to like relax and everything, and it just all comes down to like the bonding part of it. And there's no point just being serious all the time. If you're like a productivity junkie or just an improvement junkie, you probably only going to improve up to a certain point, because there will need to come a time where you need to find that right balance when it comes to just to doing everything. Because probably the best journeys are the ones that have, the most versatile experiences in it, right? So it's about the laughs, it's about the training, it's about the banter, it's about switching on and off, etc. And that's also going to help you in your professional life after rowing too. I got an engineering job after I finished my rowing career, and there were certain days in the office where we needed to get projects done, and it was a huge open office, so we needed to kind of like focus on and just keep getting tasks done. And there were days where, we'd have a bit of banter, and that would also help us bond. And then, you always bond against like the boss or the manager or something like this. So you can then find like not necessarily a common enemy, but just like a common topic that you can relate to other people over, because you're all part of the same boat. And this is true, especially for rowing, especially for your crewmates. But understanding that because you're in the same boat, you actually do have to play that role of also making sure you do your bit, pull your weight when it comes to improving the atmosphere and keeping it fun, drop some jokes, etc. But understand that there's a place for for banter and there's a place for seriousness, for sure.
Yeah, I think, and yeah, there's a time and a place for everything, right? And like even in elite programs, so even at Leander or even with GB, there's a time when you're allowed and the coaches allow you. You know, there's like the Leander Christmas dinner. You know, that's done before the last session, so it's like, yeah, go and have fun, go and have some drinks, have a proper laugh. Like in rowing is to say, look, you don't want to go out every weekend, but there's also going to be opportunities where you need to release that pressure. You know, under 23s in my first year in Prague, they had the closing ceremony, and then the organisers, I think because there'd been really, really bad weather, the organisers said that sort of the after party was cancelled. So it was actually GB rowing coaches that went to the New Zealanders and the Aussies and said, oh, are you guys doing anything? And they said no. And they said, well, look, we've got this whole hotel booked out, so we'll do like a bit of an after party there. So we went, you know, down to the bar at our party. It was like a big open bar and an outside bit as well. And we all like mixed together with the other athletes and had a laugh. So I think even in the most elite programs, the coaches, you know, understand that there's a time and a place for that. And I remember being there and had a big bottle of alcohol and would just go around making sure everyone else was drinking. And he got his enjoyment from just getting everyone else pissed, which was quite funny, and like seeing what all the stupid stuff people do. This is not to say that you have to drink, or, you know, it's personal preference what you like to do, but just understanding that, yeah, that you need those opportunities to release the pressure. And if you never do, and if you try and keep yourself in this mindset of like just, elite athlete all the time, then you're going to pop at some point. And like mental health is really important. It's something that's come more into sport, and we'll discuss with a lot of athletes about when they've struggled with mental health. And I mean, for me personally, like it was like when I wasn't felt as included in that squad, that was when it sort of stopped being as fun.
Well, hopefully, if you know, maybe you've had a bit of a rough time with training over the winter, we're just coming into the spring and summer racing season, so maybe this is going to help you kind of like lighten up some of your training sessions, or help you push on until you find that you're starting to enjoy rowing again, and you know the weather's good and it's not just cold and rainy and wet and grey, and it's like nice and light and blue and summery, and you know, actually being splashed with some water during a training session is gonna help you feel better. It's not just even about rowing. The journey is everywhere. It's through life. So even in business, or even in sport, or even at your job, there's going to be times where you need to learn how to have fun. So you might as well use what you've taken from another sport and then just kind of translate that into the other area of your life that you're currently in.
I think if I was to go back to me as a kid, sort of 17, 18-year-old, when I started taking it really seriously, I think I think this would be a big part of it, is to make sure that I did understand it. I didn't take it too seriously at all times. I did allow myself to have a little bit of fun. And I think it also it goes into, you know, to use Ben Hunt Davis's, it's not his own quote, but the Sydney 8, will it make the boat go faster? So you want to ask yourself at every time, everything that you're doing, will this make the boat go faster? And I think a lot of the time I was like, I'm going to go out and have a beer. No, that's bad. Like, will it make, you know, that's not going to make the boat go faster. And obviously if I did that every week, no, it wouldn't. But occasionally going out and letting the stress off is eventually going to make the boat go faster. And I think there's so many things, like we've talked about, you know, just plain having fun, but also like bringing fun into sessions. As a coach, having sessions that are more fun, or sessions that aren't specifically based around technique or things like that, or even having fun sessions in the boat. I think all these things can improve, like you said, you can improve the squad and make you stronger than the sum of your parts. And I had an athlete once say to me, you know, she was getting really serious and she started taking things really serious, really enjoying what she was doing in the boat. She's like, give me 8 things that I can do better for rowing. And she thought I was going to say, you know, something, push harder on the foot play, or, you know, work on the catch. And I was like, I can give you 8 things that have nothing to do with rowing that will increase your benefit or increase your performance, like get better sleep, eat better, stretch better, some basic stuff. But like, even going out of that, like have fun, like enjoy yourself, enjoy your life. Like don't try and focus down onto one thing too quickly. Like if you're going to get there, you'll get there. Believe me, ultimately at some point, you know, rowing will get serious anyway. So I would say, like, don't force it to always be serious. Like you're going that way anyway. So just enjoy it while you're there. And like I said, like there are times to take it really seriously. And I'm not saying you should joke around in your pre-race chat and things like that. But just understand that it's allowed, and it, in some sense, almost like I'm not the be all and end all, and everyone else will have a different opinion, and your different coach might tell you when they think it's best to have fun or joke around or not. But ultimately, like, give yourself permission to do it, because, like you said, think back to why you got into rowing, why you enjoyed it, how you had fun, and as you progress through the sport, make sure you're still doing that. Make sure you're still having a look at those things, taking a look back, understanding what was good, bringing that forward. And not trying to force yourself into a place where you're not enjoying it anymore, because ultimately you can do that for a while, but eventually, if you're really not enjoying it for a year or 2 years or 3 years, you're going to stop doing it.
If you take away everything else from the journey, you're not going to prolong it, you're going to shorter it, because even the bottle of water that's got the smallest amount of fizz in, you shake it long enough, understand you're a human, you're going to get rattled at some point, and you need to let go. Exactly. You shake that bottle of sparkling water long enough, it's going to pop, it's going to explode. So if you think of yourself like this, you can kind of naturally give yourself permission to actually just blow off some steam. Yeah, go and have fun, have a few beers, or if that's not your thing, maybe play some pool, or maybe go and read a book, or go and hike, go to a countryside, go for a swim. Just do something different. But just because you're taking one thing seriously, that doesn't mean you have to deprive yourself of enjoying everything else. And ultimately, if you want to be an elite rower, or if you want to be successful, the journey is going to have to take some time. It's going to be prolonged. So just don't take away from it, but trying to get too good too quickly. Because sometimes progress isn't linear, and ultimately is the one who stays on the journey for the longest. Usually that's gonna make it like quite far. So think about, okay, well, is this going to improve my rowing right now in the short term? Maybe not, but is this going to help me learn how to manage my nerves, manage my stress, manage my time and the enjoyment, and ultimately make me a more successful athlete in terms of like looking at your seasons or looking at your career? The answer is probably going to be yes. Awesome. I think that's just about everything for today's episode. Hopefully this has helped you deal with like some stress or some of the hard times that you might have had in winter training. Well, don't worry, summer racing's almost here. And obviously, if you ever bump into us at any of the regattas and you want to chat about anything, just let us know. But if you think that this video might help some other people deal with their stress or with the hard times that they were having and kind of turn it around, please share it around. We'd love for it to have a good positive effect.
Yeah, it's a bit of a last minute. Obviously, we thought we were filming a different video today and things have changed. Like we said, expect the unexpected. So it's just sort of a topic that we've grabbed to run with and have a bit of a chat with. If there's some other topics that are useful for anyone else out there, like shout out. We'll sort of be going over different bits and pieces, but there's so much we could go with. So yeah, like any questions on anything we've missed or other ways that you can bring fun into the sport, definitely shout. Or if you've got any other ideas for different topics to get into a little bit more, yeah, let us know. And hopefully you enjoy what we're talking about. We're not boring you too much, but
hopefully
yeah.
not.
Well, this one's about fun, so hopefully it was fun.
Yeah. Just if there's other ways that your club maybe makes the training atmosphere more fun or the training more enjoyable, just drop them in the comments, because we'd love to hear about that as well. So yeah, I think just to conclude this episode, it just really makes sense to say, remember, when training gets tough, the last stroke counts. So on that note, easy there.
Cue the music.